He had already decided that this Christmas would be his last one spent caring. The lights outside his window felt like a cruel joke, the silence inside his apartment louder than any carol. If the knock hadn't come when it did, three sharp sounds against the door, no one would have known how close he was to giving up on people, on hope, on Christmas itself. At exactly 9:17 p.m. on Christmas Eve, when loneliness had fully settled into his bones and the world seemed finished with him, someone knocked on his door, someone who would change everything he believed about being forgotten. The radiator hissed like it was tired of trying. Mark Ellison sat on the edge of his couch, still wearing the same sweater he'd worn all week, staring at a Christmas tree that hadn't been decorated since his wife died. The tree stood there anyway, bare, crooked, and half dead, because taking it down felt like admitting something was truly over. Outside, laughter drifted up from the street. Families passed by with wrapped boxes and glowing faces. Mark didn't close the blinds. He wanted to punish himself by watching what he no longer had. 2 years ago, Christmas meant noise. It meant burnt cookies, arguments over wrapping paper, and his wife Sarah humming off-key while decorating the tree. Then came the hospital rooms, the quiet machines, and finally, the kind of silence that never leaves once it arrives. Friends had stopped calling after the first year. They didn't mean to, he knew that. People with full lives rarely know what to say to someone whose world has stopped. Mark didn't blame them. He just slowly disappeared. He had told himself this Christmas would be different. He'd go to a shelter, maybe volunteer, maybe prove to himself that he still mattered. But the closer Christmas came, the heavier everything felt. Grief has a way of convincing you that staying still hurts less than moving forward. Mark stood up and poured himself a drink he didn't want. He raised the glass toward the empty room, a sad imitation of a toast. "To another year," he muttered, still breathing. That's when the knock came. 3 sharp knocks, hesitant but intentional. Mark froze. No one knocked on his door. Not tonight, not ever. He checked the clock. 9:17 p.m. The knocking came again, louder this time. His first instinct was annoyance. His second was fear, but something deeper, something stubborn and human pushed him toward the door. When he opened it, the hallway light spilled in, revealing a small figure standing just beyond the threshold, a boy. Maybe 10 years old, thin jacket, red scarf too big for his neck, snow melting into his shoes. The boy looked up, eyes wide but determined. He said, "I'm sorry to bother you, but are you alone?" The question hit harder than any punch. Mark swallowed. "Yes," boy nodded like he'd expected that answer. "Me too." Mark glanced down the hallway. "Where are your parents?" The boy shifted his weight. "My mom's working. She won't be back until morning. Our power went out. I saw your light on." Mark felt something crack open in his chest. He should have said no. He should have sent the boy to another apartment. Instead, he stepped aside. "Come in," he said quietly. "It's cold." Boy smiled, not big, not dramatic, just enough to feel like warmth entering the room. "Name's Eli," he said. Mark closed the door behind him, unaware that this small act of kindness was about to pull him back from the edge. Mark thought the knock was just a moment, but by the time the night ended, he would realize it was an invitation to start living again. Eli sat on the floor near the bare Christmas tree, examining it like it was something rare. "You don't have ornaments," he said gently. Mark shrugged. "Didn't feel right." Eli reached into his backpack and pulled out a small, folded piece of paper. He opened it carefully, revealing a crooked star drawn in crayon. "Mom and I make one every year," he said. "We don't have much, but we always make something." Without asking, Eli taped the paper star to the top of the tree. Mark watched, his throat tight. They shared sandwiches made from whatever Mark had left in the fridge. They talked about small things, school, snowstorms, favorite movies. Eli laughed easily, but Mark noticed how often the boy glanced at the door, waiting. At 11:58 p.m., Eli checked his watch. "It's almost Christmas," he said. Mark hadn't realized the time. Eli stood up and faced him. "Can I tell you something?" Mark nodded. "I was scared to knock," Eli admitted. "But my mom always says that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is ask to not be alone." The words landed deep. Just after midnight, the hallway lights flickered back on. The power had returned. Soon after, Eli's mom arrived, exhausted, apologetic, emotional when she realized where her son had been. She thanked Mark more times than he could count. When they left, the apartment felt quiet again, but not empty. Mark sat on the couch, staring at the small paper star glowing softly in the light. For the first time in 2 years, the silence didn't hurt. The next morning, Mark woke early. He made coffee. He put on music. He pulled out the box of ornaments he hadn't opened since Sarah passed. One by one, he decorated the tree. Later that day, there was another knock. This time, Mark smiled before he opened the door. Eli stood there with his mom, holding a small plate of cookies. "Merry Christmas," Eli said, and Mark finally believed it. Sometimes Christmas doesn't come with miracles wrapped in ribbons. Sometimes it comes as a knock on the door, asking if you're willing to open your heart again. And when you do, you may discover that you were never as alone as you thought.